should.
Hey guys, so you guys didn't. Oh, why is my? Hold on a second. I don't know why I'm. Do you see that? Like I'm looking downward. I
Kind of.
gotta
Um,
position myself.
it's fine. You can edit, right? So
Yeah, I could just edit it.
okay,
All
cool.
right, All right, guys. Welcome to another episode of Quartz Mindset. Today we have the other half of G&E Productions. If you guys didn't know, we had the other Greg, as I think it was like my third episode, and today we got Emily, who has actually written a book that's published. So,
Thank you, Court. Great to be here.
yeah. So, what, in your opinion, like, what drew you to writing this book? Like, what was the inspiration?
Well, in simpler terms, I guess the inspiration was really a conversation that I had had with my therapist about certain psychological behaviors and sort of relating those in a metaphorical sense to mythological creatures. So yeah, that was kind of the start of it. And then I started doing some research. I've always been very interested in psychology and mental health in general. So a lot of my work is based in that. So a lot of research went into earlier time periods in regards to mental health and what that looked like in previous times. So I yeah, that was kind of my starting point.
So, with my, because, I'm writing a graphic novel. I don't know. Well, you probably know because Greg probably mentioned it.
He did.
But, like, for me, my influences for my book was like Scott Pilgrim and like a bunch of other things. Who, like, inspires you to be a writer? Like, what authors and people, like, what things inspire you in that sense?
Well, this book is a gothic fiction, and that tends to be the genre that I'm drawn to. Writers like Henry James, Daphne du Maurier, Stephen King has always been a really big influence of
I
mine.
love Stephen King.
Love him so much. It just, yeah, his books are so engrossing. I feel like once I pick one up, I have real trouble putting them down. And, the imagery is so visceral. You really feel like you're there with the character. So that's sort of what I always strive to do. Susan Black too. I'm sorry, Susan Hill, Woman in Black, is also another favorite. She tells a great ghost story. So I like things with a little, creepiness to them for sure.
So when you're writing, because like I think I guess this comes from me asking because this is something I do. Do you write from the standpoint of like characters developing from the situation, or it's written around like their personality, like the reaction?
That's a great question. I feel like usually I come up with a plot and, my characters sort of come along with that. They sort of develop as the story goes on. But then there are instances I feel like when I'm writing that my characters sort of just take over and then the people that they're becoming and the things that they are saying sort of can sometimes shift the plot or move it in another direction. So I feel like it's kind of both.
So there is either this is also a really funny thing I've also read. Some writers are better at intros. Some writers are better at endings.
Mm.
Some writers are better at the middle. Where do you feel like you fit on that scale?
You have really good questions today.
I had some time to think from the last time we tried this.
I don't know. Endings I feel like are really, really important. I feel like I usually try to leave my endings open-ended, because I always like to have room for a sequel or a continuation of some sort. But I'm also very thorough about making sure my ending is satisfying, to the reader. I feel like that's important. So I would say probably endings, are my more of my focus than any part because it sort of it wraps everything up. But again, I mean, all obviously everything's important, but the intro also needs to really grab your reader. So I usually always have a prologue. I usually always have an epilogue. This book has both. And the action really starts at the beginning, like immediately we're in. So I feel like starting with a bang is really important too.
So I wanted to ask Greg this, but you were in it too. When I had Greg on, we were talking about like projects. So he sent me the G&E website, and there was I forget the name of it, but there was one of the short films you had about a painter.
Yes, wet paint.
Wet paint, yeah. Um, how was like making that? What was like how did that feel? Because I feel like that looked like such a fun thing to like do as like a project.
Making a movie is always such a balance between being super excited and super neurotic. I it was fun. It was a lot of fun to make. I produced that was my first film that I like produced that I really made.
Oh, well, congrats.
Thank you. So it was like my first time trying to wear multiple hats on a film set. I was in it, I wrote the story, Greg adapted it into the screenplay, and then we produced it. So oscillating between like having being in actor mode and playing this demonic succubus to then being like, I have to order the food. Do we have makeup? Do we have we can't have this here in this art gallery. We need to make sure, making sure extras were where they needed to be, making sure everybody was, good on set, the crew, so there were like a lot of moving pieces. So it was kind of an ambitious first project for me, but it was a lot of fun. It was psychological horror, which I think definitely brought some excitement to the set. And we loved everyone we worked with. It was a great team. So I would definitely do it again. But now years later, I obviously have worked on more film in that capacity and definitely have a different mindset of how I would go about things.
Yeah. And then you did transit too, right?
Yes, that was my directorial debut.
That was so good, by the
Oh,
way.
thanks.
If you guys haven't seen it, I don't know if I can link it or not, but
It's currently
definitely see
on
it.
the
It's worth it.
Thank you. Oh, I really appreciate that. It's currently on the festival circuit, so it's not available to the public right now. It was briefly on because it had its world premiere at Out on Film, which is an Academy Award qualifying film festival down in Atlanta, which was pretty cool. So right now we're just waiting to hear back from other festivals, but once it's finished its completion on the festival circuit, it will be available to watch. And if it comes to, any cities near anyone, they're more than welcome to go and check it out. So I will definitely be posting through G&E and my own social media if that happens. So you will
It
be.
should. It should. When Greg showed me that, I was like,
The actors really made it. I mean, I was just kind of going crazy in the background, being like, I don't know what's happening. It
well,
was so
listen,
intense.
being crazy worked because like how it turned out, that was really cool.
Thanks. Thank you
So
for films.
now being that you're published, right? I had a I'm not sure if Greg told you, but I had a whole thing and I didn't end up publishing my book, right? Because yeah,
I didn't
I'm
know
not
that.
gonna fully get into it, but for another day.
Okay.
Um, how did you like find out about like your publisher? Did you like look for them? Did they find you or
So publishing is like really tricky. I went like tried to go the traditional route with this book like beforehand, and you're querying, you're hitting every major lit agency. Do you need representation before you can get a publisher? Some publishers don't require representation. It's like a whole thing. But what's really cool is one of my mentors, who I actually met when I was in grad school years ago in London, who's also a
at
published.
school in London?
Yeah.
It's
Uh,
fancy.
it was quite fancy. He He is a published author. He's written several books that have done quite well, and he decided to start his own publishing company. Um,
Oh,
yes, he's an independent publisher now. He is, I believe, will be up to about 10 books this by the end of the year, which is really exciting. And he reached out to me and had, being my mentor, I constantly dump all of my writing on him, being
of
like,
course.
what do I do? So yeah, he really enjoyed the story and he thought it was, commercially viable, that people would want to read it, that people would relate to it, whether that be on, a more just have fun with this book, or if they dig a little deeper, there's stuff there. But yeah, he asked me if I wanted to publish it, and I said, okay, let's do it. Like a crazy person.
No,
It's
I love that. I love
fine.
that. I love that because when I was in like I think eighth grade, I wrote a story and my English teacher like he read it. He was like, "You have to put this in the literary magazine for the school," and I'm just like, "I don't know, man. I don't think people are really gonna like it." And he like worked with me to like get it to like fix the story and everything. So things like that, I love hearing that because it's always nice when someone like believes in you enough to be like, hey, this is like good enough for me to like, especially like to publish it if he had that to put it like his name behind it. That'd be pretty cool.
Yeah. Those people are really important. Like the people who, just believe in you, have your back, and as artists, it's like the self-doubt, imposter syndrome. It can be super overwhelming to be like, what am I doing? So to have someone in your corner and pushing you to be, to put yourself out there and to, solidify that and be like, you can do this, is really powerful. Those are the types of people I try to surround myself with, and that's the type of person I try to be for other people as well. I think it's really important that we support each
Yeah.
other, especially just with the way the world is. It's important.
I agree. Art is a community, you know, so you always gotta push each other because you know you never know when
Publish
you
your
need
novel.
yeah, no, yeah, I had a whole thing with book one where like I rushed it. I'll be honest with you, I rushed it and I didn't really think about a lot of things with publishing. And I think now that I'm doing book two, I kind of have a better like headspace. But I think I needed to like step away because I put it on a website, globalcomics.com, and it's really cool. Like it's doing pretty well. Like I
Oh,
get updates every week and it's less I have to think less about I don't have to think about it as much. So they do like all the work for you, you know.
wow. That's really cool.
Yeah, I reached out to someone else who was doing a book and I was just like, I don't know, I didn't have the money. That was the big thing with the thing. I didn't have the money to pay them. And someone's just like, just do like global comics or something like that where you can upload it for free.
That's awesome.
And then there's like a little like paywall thing. So it's like first 10 pages and then it's like $1. And it's at the end of the day, it's like someone reminded me, it's like it's for people to see it. It wasn't really about the money. So I thought that was like really cool that they get the first 10 pages and they could just like they can see if they want to buy it. But even just them doing that is enough.
Just getting the views is nice, right? Like knowing people are
Yeah.
reading your stuff is cool.
Yeah, it's tricky. That's always weird because I think I had a conversation like that with someone once where it was like, if you're writing a book, I saw it on a video. Someone made a like they made a movie and they charged money for it, but it wasn't getting any attention. And he was like, it's better if people actually see it because it's like their first movie. It's like I would rather people see it. So you put it out for free, and you know
Totally.
it led to making money, which was cool.
That's the thing. It's like you never know when something's gonna hit and what's accessible, or like what people just pick something up. And that's why it's always important, I think, to just be producing and getting your stuff out there, no matter how you do it. Just the fact that you
Yeah.
do is important.
What is like the biggest like shocker to you since releasing the book, like news wise?
My book was on a plane this morning.
What? Going where?
My friend was traveling for the weekend and she sent me a picture of my book that she took on the plane. And I was like, Veil of Seduction's taking its first flight today. I don't know why that just blew my mind. That people sending me copies to be like, can you sign it and send it back to me? I signed like books today, which was crazy. I
That's
think
definitely a crazy feeling when you have something that people can buy and they're asking you to sign it. You're just like, oh my God, like this is my thing, this is my.
yeah, it's surreal just to see it. And I think the support, honestly, like, I mean, I know I have a lot of awesome, really great supportive people in my world, but like, I'm kind of blown away by how supportive everyone has been. I'm
Yeah.
shocked every time I see like a copy. Like I've been asking people to send me pictures or videos or whatever of them with the book. Because I personally am just enjoying it so much and I want to put together some kind of compilation at some point. But just seeing that is like it's wild. It's really cool. I feel really, really lucky. Yeah.
Yeah, because I have a Redbubble shop where I sell stuff, and I think my first sale wasn't even in the States. It was like this country in Europe, and I was just like,
Who is
it's funny
it?
because like the first few was like European sales, and I'm just like, just the idea that like a design I made is being bought by someone so far away is pretty cool.
Your work is amazing. We have a zombie sticker of you, which is like probably my favorite sticker that we own. It's so cool. Your art's great. So I'm not surprised that people are buying it in Europe.
Yeah, I'm just gonna tell you. So I was like talking to Greg, and when the thing said New Jersey, I didn't know who it was. So the whole time I was like, I think I talked to him once, and I'm just like, the sale in New Jersey. I don't even think I know anyone in New Jersey to like buy anything. And I kept calling the person like New Jersey the
That's
whole time. I'm like, this New Jersey person. And then he like showed me he got it. And I'm just like, you're in New Jersey? Oh my God.
sometimes we forget ourselves that we're in New Jersey. Oh my gosh. That's funny.
Yeah. The nice part of New Jersey, are we talking like
We're in Hoboken. It's basically the sixth borough. We're right here. So we consider it New York. But yeah, we know, and people are like, "Oh, you live in New Jersey, like do you know other part?" And we're like, "We know nothing outside of like here where we are." So,
so what's like, were you always into writing or was this like a new kind of thing for you?
I have always been into writing. I was into reading and then I was into writing. From a very young age, even, when I was a kid, I would make up stories, I would write comics, things like that. And it was funny you mentioned a teacher. I had a teacher in eighth grade who was a substitute teacher for my English class, and he had us write horror stories. And I really took to it and the genre and all of it. And he was very encouraging of my work. And, you know, I feel like that was like it's such a core memory for me as a writer of like getting that feeling of like, oh, I'm good at this, or like I can do this, or, somebody's interested in what I have to say. And then my writing sort of expanded, my artistic sensibility sort of expanded. I, did a lot of singing. I studied opera for quite a bit of time. Got
Bro.
into acting, and then that sort of opened up directing and filmmaking. So it's always been part of my world. And then I did my master's actually in stage and screenwriting. So writing has always sort of been my catharsis. I was actually telling someone yesterday that as an actor, I feel like I'm always taking things in, right? Like I'm incorporating things, or when I'm developing a character, I'm trying to pull from other things outside of me and incorporate them into me. But as a writer, I feel like it's such an outpouring, it's such a release of all of the things that are inside of me. So Sometimes it's conscious, sometimes it's not. Like I always think it's an indicator when I'm rereading something that I've written and I'm like, I wrote that. I don't remember writing that. And I'm
Yeah.
like, that's some unconscious shit working around in there.
Yeah.
Um, but yeah, so yeah, writing is just always been a part of my life. I hope it will continue to be. If I could do it all the time and get paid to do it every day, it would be, a dream. I have two other manuscripts, full length manuscripts that I've have
Hmm.
in the queue. So we'll see what happens. They're also both psychological. One's more of like a monster story, and one's more of like a real life monster story. So yeah.
So a few things, opera. That's dope. I that's kind of crazy. Um, I had the same kind of thing. I was a writer first, so like maybe, well, I was it was art first, but I had a stint in like middle school to like high school to be a writer, and I think it was after I discovered Stephen King. Like, oh my God, Stephen King at that age to me, I don't know what it was. I was at the bookstore and I saw a little girl holding a Stephen King book, and I made a comment. The mom was like, "Yeah, she's got to read the good stuff, you know." And I'm like, "Yeah, mom." But yeah, no, I think that's cool. I think what's cool about writing like horror stories is that you can really be creative with it. Like I've written a lot of other things, but like horror to me is like fun because there's so many like weird avenues you can take. And you don't always have to be like direct. Like you can have it be where it's the monster is like the person, but you don't know that until the end. Or maybe you reveal the monster in the beginning, but he's not a monster anymore at the end. It's like there's so many just weird like avenues you can take. And as like time goes on, you're seeing that people are like exploring like different ideas within it. So I think it's pretty cool, you know. Then I love like true crime.
Mm.
Love true crime.
That's a guilty pleasure for sure. Yeah,
uh,
I think horror is really it's expansive and it's flexible. And like I hate being held to one genre. Like when people are like, what genre is your book? I'm like, well, it's got lots of things in it. I can't really, I feel like it's hard to define. I mean, it's a gothic fiction, but there's romantic elements, there's mysterious elements, there's thrilling elements, there's gothic horror elements. So like, horror is kind of subjective, like, right? I mean, everything is,
yeah,
but like, what scares you? Is it the monsters, in the traditional sense, or is it people? And how you can blur those lines, I think is really cool. But there's so many like such a subgenre in a way because horror exists everywhere, really, depending on how you look at it.
oh yeah, it's very open. I feel like or it's a very like open thing.
Hmm.
So you said you have,
Sorry.
oh no.
I can talk about Stephen King all day. I'm sorry. Go
Oh
ahead.
no, me too. I did a whole podcast with Brian, and half of it was talking about Stephen King.
I'll have to check that.
So good. But how long did it take you to write the book?
Um, from like sitting down to now, like from like the original conception, it's been a bit. But the actual writing process it took me about a month and a half, 2 months maybe tops, to get like a full first draft out. And then, the tweaking and the tinkering and the, going back, and I like to write to wherever I want to stop for the evening or whenever. And then usually the next day before I continue writing, I go back and I look and see what I wrote. And then I'll kind of edit and blah, 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 and, fix things and whatnot. But with this book, I feel like I don't do this often, but I actually went back and added an entire chapter, which ended up being my favorite chapter in the book. So that's kind of interesting. And it's not like a super like raw, like all this crazy stuff happening. It's actually a flashback chapter. But it really tied the whole story together for me. And I don't know if like to come back to endings, but maybe because I wrote it last, like it holds special meaning for me because it's like kind of the last piece that went in. But yeah, it was a couple months, I'd say, to really get that whole first draft.
I think it's important too sometimes when you do that because I did that with the first book too. I had it written out. Like I do like a manuscript and then I go and I edit the writing. And I noticed a lot of the way one character was talking, it sounded like that character was a robot. And I
Mm.
didn't catch that until like way later. And it was just like a lot of fixing. So, I mean, sometimes you got to do that. Sometimes you have to add like context, or maybe like your ending isn't strong enough. You feel like after seeing it, I think you just got to like step away from it sometimes. And like I reread the first book and I'm like proud of it, but I still see things where it's like, this is rushing, like, or like this part is too slow, or I didn't really. So what I'm doing is I'm answering some of that in book two because it's continuing book one. So it's kind of like the same thing, like writing another chapter, like just because you want to finish the thought.
Definitely. And sometimes you
Unless
get
it's
lost in that, it's a
yeah,
lot. As a writer, you always have a lot going on, I think.
yeah, because when you're in the moment, you're like, oh man, I gotta cover this, and this in this one chapter, and it's especially when you don't have pictures, it's like you have to create all of that through words.
Right. That's definitely a challenge. That's why like prose writing it's a great thing and it's a pain because like in a way you aren't beholden to anything, right? Like you don't have to worry about having to like create that image. Like if you're writing a screenplay, you have to be like, well, how could I do this on camera? Like how would this look? So like maybe the dialogue is shorter and you don't have to put as much detail in. So that's like the plus side. But then at the same time, you're like, well, can I make that happen on camera? Whereas when you're writing a book or a comic or, you can just whatever, we're going to bring a spaceship down and blow up all these buildings, or like people are going to turn into aliens, or like whatever, you can just do it, like it's just
Yeah,
done. There you go. So I think that there's the downside to it is that all of that detail, all of that imagery, has to be in there, and it has to be exciting, it has to be shown and not told to a certain degree.
but also keeping the mystery because you don't want to fully flesh something out. You want to give the reader or the viewer a chance to be like, they're upset, but you don't want that like the book to be like they were upset that this. You want to give the idea of situation.
And you also want to make your readers upset.
Oh yeah, that too. You want to take them on the ride.
Oh yes, that's super crucial. Um, for sure. Makes me a sadistic
But
author, but
yeah, do you have a favorite book right now,
favorite book right now.
or like maybe like top three if one book is hard to.
Yeah, that's really difficult for me. My brain just like went blank when you asked me that. Um, that one of my most treasured books that I have, actually Greg bought me, I think it was for Christmas or my birthday years ago. But it's the first edition of The Princess Bride by William Goldman, and it has
Princess
all his
Bride.
annotated notes in it, which makes it like he has like all his commentary on writing the novel, which is brilliant and it's extremely special to me. So that's probably my favorite book that I own, obviously because it was given to me by the most important person in my life, but also The Princess Bride is just, it's classic. It's got everything.
I
It's got,
love The Princess Bride. Oh my God. I've seen that 8 times.
it's the best. It's the
And
best.
it's funny because I've seen it 8 times and I've never like tried to like go, all right, I'm watching Princess Bride today. It's always just been it's on TV or it's like a situation I walk into and it's on.
Love it. It's great. Can't go wrong.
Yeah.
But
And
it is a close second. I really enjoy it. It is one of probably my favorite Stephen King novel. I read it before the films came out. And it stuck with me so hard. It was such like a growing up novel for me. It's such a coming of age story. And again, with that horror element to, becoming an adult, super relatable. I really enjoyed that book.
it's pretty cool. It's the idea of like how it feeds on fear and then how the kids defeat it by like not being afraid of it. You could translate that into a bunch of different things,
Oh,
that
so
kind of concept.
that's what's so remarkable about the writing. And that's kind of what I try to do with this book is, from one sense, I feel like you can just read it as what it is. It's a story, it's a gothic fiction story that's got all this thrilling, exciting things happening. But like if you look at what I'm really trying to say on a higher level or a deeper level, I suppose, um, there's a message there. And I think it's important. So that's why I wrote it.
Oh yeah, of course. Did you have a phase writing it where you were like, oh man, I don't want to finish this?
No, I had to finish it. I was really into it when I was writing it. I think it was afterwards when I was like, this is shit. Why did I write this? This is horrible. But no, I think you just kind of get over that at some point and then you go back to it and you're like, oh, this is good. And then, no, it's not. I mean, I must do that every day. But I had to write it. I
Yeah.
had to finish it. My procrastination comes before I sit down. Once I sit down, I'm there.
Yeah, I think I'm turning into that too. I feel like it's the starting and then it's after like I start, it's like I can just like I'm in a zone.
Yeah.
So is there anything you wanna shout out?
Um, yeah, I want to just thank everyone who's purchased the book. If you want to see it, I have it here. This is the book.
Ooh, it's shiny.
I want to thank the artist, Lock Wolf. You can check him out on Instagram. He did this original cover. Obviously want to thank my publisher, Henry Gray Publishing, Greg for putting up with me, supporting me, and my friend Lauren for all the help she has done on marketing this book with me. So yeah, and I want to thank you for having me on and everyone
Of
who's,
course.
reading it, buying it, shouting it out, sharing it. It's so, so appreciated. And I am really grateful.
Yeah. So I think that's gonna be it.
Um,
Thanks for being here. It was fun.
Thanks for having me.
I'm definitely gonna like check it out. Try to find a way to check it out.
Yeah, let me know. I'll send you a copy.
Oh yeah.
I'll send you a copy. And then you
So yeah,
can leave a review and let me know what you think.
yeah, I can make some time for it.
Thanks, Court.
All right, I'll see you guys in the next episode.